Hey everyone, if you are a red Komodo owner, this is super exciting news for you. If you haven't done it already, there is a new firmware update available. Version 1.6.4 is now available on Red's website. The main difference with this update is the new time-lapse feature, which is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. First of all, if you, for some reason, have never updated your Komodo, I'm just going to quickly show you how you would go about doing that. First, go to red.com/download/komodo-firmware. Make sure you are logged in, then hit download for the latest firmware available. In this case, it will be version 1.6.4. From there, you will need to hook up your CFast card to your computer. Once your firmware has finished downloading, open the folder until you find the upgrade zip file, then drag and drop that folder into your CFast card. Next, insert the card into your Komodo, open your settings, select maintenance, then upgrade. Hit yes on the confirmation message, and then your upgrade will begin. This will result in a restart of your camera. Once the camera has rebooted, you will have the latest version installed. So now that you're up to date, let's go ahead and talk about this new time-lapse feature. This feature is important if you ever shoot time lapses. If you own the Komodo or have just used it before, you know that the file sizes are no joke, especially when you're shooting in RAW. So if you're recording footage at 24 frames per second in HQ, that will last you 30 minutes on a 512 gigabyte card. So what happens when you want to shoot a 5-hour time lapse in HQ? Well, they don't make cards that big. The solution has often been to use photo cameras for time lapses. This allows you to capture a frame at a set interval and then later convert those images into a 24 frames per second sequence. Since you may only need to capture one frame, say every 2 seconds, shooting at 24 FPS is simply wasting space with absolutely no gain. However, using a DSLR this way has a few drawbacks. First, shooting on a photo camera means more work in post. You need to edit those photos in Lightroom to utilize the raw information, then create a photo sequence with them in After Effects. Second, you'll now have to try to color match a stills camera with your other footage. This may have a different sensor size, color science, dynamic range, etc. And so it will look different, and you'll just have to try your best to compensate for that in post. With this new feature on the Komodo, you can accomplish a lot of the same benefits of using a stills camera, but with the same color science, sensor, dynamic range, aspect ratio, you name it, that your other footage has. The Komodo will even compile the sequence together for you in camera, so you don't have to stitch that together in post either. So how do you actually get this working? First, when you access your camera menu, you will notice a new tab under your project settings called Recording Mode. You now have two options to select from: motion and time-lapse. If you select the time-lapse option, you'll find that there is also a time-lapse tab in your project settings. Under that tab, you'll see options for time interval and frames per interval. Time interval is the amount of time between each image capture. This affects the ratio between how long you're recording for and how long your final clip is. For example, a clip with an interval of 5 seconds will be 5 times as fast and a fifth the length of a clip shot with a 1 second interval, assuming both are converted to the same frame rate. I'm still not quite sure what the purpose is of the frames per interval option. From what I can tell, that simply means that you can have more than one frame captured within your selected time. I'm not totally sure what the advantage of that is compared to simply adjusting your time interval. If you have the answer to this, please leave a comment down below. I would love to know, and I'm sure anyone watching would love to know, so would really appreciate that. But once you get to the main screen on the Komodo, you will now see an additional setting along the bottom menu for your interval. You still have parameters for your ISO, iris, shutter, and white balance. The record button also has an altered appearance that indicates the time interval selected. Note that the audio capture is no longer enabled when you're in this mode. I went ahead and took a test shot just to see how well this feature actually works, so you can go ahead and see for yourself. I would love to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments, but here are my initial thoughts. I found that the menu settings are actually pretty easy to navigate and found it was intuitive to get everything dialed in. I love that the footage matches all the other footage that I shoot and that the file is automatically compiled. It makes the post-production workflow so much easier, and you can honestly just treat it as if it was any other shot that you got on your camera. The main drawback I found that honestly should be a really easy fix is the shutter speed. Right now you seem to be limited to lowering your shutter speed to 1/24. Typically when doing time lapses, using a slower shutter speed is ideal to create a natural amount of motion blur. Since you have much longer gaps between your frames being captured, you need much more motion blur in order for this to look natural once everything's sped up. Typically I shoot time lapses with around a 1 to 2 second shutter speed. On the Komodo, however, this is limited, and I don't really see why a lower shutter speed couldn't be attained in a firmware update or something like that. Unlike speeding up the shutter where the hardware needs to be capable of those new demands, slowing it down shouldn't technically have an issue, at least in my mind, but maybe I'm wrong and I don't fully understand it. But to me, that seems like it could be an easy fix, and I would love to see that in a future update. Hopefully that gives you a good overview of this new feature and can get you kickstarted on using it yourself. If you learned something in this video, go ahead, give it a like, subscribe for more content. I post at least once a week, so you don't want to miss that. We'll see you in the next one.